Hey, what is up everybody, Platform Disciple here, and this is not the video that I said would be coming next, but at least you're getting a video. Anyways, to jump right into it, turns out making review videos on card games takes a lot of time and effort, and doesn't have, I don't think, as much entertainment payoff value for you as viewers as is worth the amount of effort that I have to put into it. Not only do I have to, edit the video and come up with a reasonably well thought out commentary, but I actually have to play these games for a while to actually get a real opinion. And not only is that hard because it takes time, but also because I want to play the games that I actually enjoy, and it turns out that trying a bunch of different card games will lead to me playing things that I'm not having as much fun with as I could be having with something else. So instead, I think I might actually just stick to Gwent for now, and hopefully take some of you on that journey with me. But before we, go full-blown Gwent, I want to say that I am still considering hopping around between different card games. Notably, there are two that are not out for a public beta yet, but are on my radar, and I don't know how long it will be until those come out, or at least until we hear, a little more news about them. The first of which is MTG Arena, which is Magic the Gathering, and I have been playing Magic since, probably since I was 12 or something. So obviously I care a lot about that game. I will say that the digital versions that exist right now for it are honestly quite awful, so I don't necessarily expect MTG Arena to be any better, just because the bar has been set so low by the other ones. But I am hopeful, and I am going to at least try it when it comes out. And then the other one that has caught my attention is one that a lot of you may or may not have heard of, because there hasn't been much news since its initial announcement, which was quite some time ago. But the game is Artifact, which is based off of Dota, the MOBA game, Defense of the Ancients. I suspect a lot of you have heard of it. I have tried Dota. It's not really for me, but a card game based off of Dota, I'm willing to try out for a number of reasons. One is that it's made by Valve, and Valve has a very high standard for games that they put their title on, and tend to have a lot of support for the communities that they build around those games. For example, Dota and Counter-Strike have some of the largest competitive viewership, which attracts a lot of players to those games to watch and play those games, and I'm hoping Artifact will be similar. But the other big thing about Artifact is that it has been allegedly designed by Richard Garfield, who is the creator of Magic the Gathering. So a commonality between these two games that are not out yet that I'm excited about is that the same mastermind is originally behind it, which is Richard Garfield. And I'm particularly interested in Artifact because this will probably be Richard Garfield's kind of second really big game. I know Richard Garfield has made tons of other games, but obviously he's known for Magic, but he could become known for Artifact as well, seeing as Valve is probably going to put a lot of support into that game. Anyways, I'm also going to quickly discuss some other card games that I think might be worth your time. Notably Ferraria, I don't know. Anyways, I think a lot of you have mentioned that, and I have tried it, and it is quite good, and I think that for Infinity Wars players, it might be quite appealing because it has an extremely challenging and deep strategy, because the majority of the game, although you're playing with cards, is actually a board-based combat where you're moving characters around, and positioning and knowing which characters to move and where to move them is very important. You also construct the terrain as you play, so you construct the board, and knowing whether it's better to spend your resources constructing certain types of terrain versus doing something else, and where you're constructing that terrain is very important. So very deep strategy. I am probably not going to stick with it predominantly for a very shallow reason, which is that I don't like the game, the way the game looks. Like I suppose it's supposed to be like a whimsical art style, but it ultimately for me feels very what is the best way to describe this? It's minimalistic. Like I don't really get excited about looking at the cards or looking at the pieces on the board ever. I think that a big part of card games is what the cards look like, and for me, I think that is best embodied by when I look at a card and it gets me excited just by the way it looks. And I didn't really get that from Ferraria. None of the cards really like looked like, oh man, this is something that interests me. And other card games, I have to mention Hearthstone. It's the big giant, really uncontested by any other digital card game right now. There isn't really any similar competition. Like even these other big name games like Gwent, they just have such a smaller player base by comparison, and Hearthstone is really the only digital card game that has a really secure future, is I guess the best way to describe it, because any card game can lose a lot of support over time pretty easily, whereas Hearthstone has so many, like just the sheer quantity of entrenched players, as well as the content that they churn out regularly, keeps people interested in the game. That being said, I think if you're coming off of Infinity Wars, it might actually just kind of bore you, to be quite frank. I mean, I think Hearthstone's really fun, but you don't really have that experience of like extreme outplays, like completely just owning somebody by playing better than them. And Hearthstone has fairly linear gameplay. The choices are fairly small. The best choice frequently presents itself very easily, and when it doesn't, it's hard to tell when you messed up or not, in some cases, because of like random effects and things like that. It's very difficult to, distinguish the good players from the bad to some extent. But yeah, it's coming out with a new set soon. It's fun. The real drawback is if you're not already into it, it's super hard to catch up in terms of making your collection. They've been improving that over time, but it's still kind of rough for the new players. Where on the other side of the coin, like I'm playing Gwent right now. Just to be clear, the background video is actually recorded in advance. I'm not playing at this very moment, hands free. They just have the Gwent in the background for you to look at. But I haven't put that much time into Gwent, and I'm feeling like I can hit Grandmaster within like a couple weeks if I just really grind at it, which I have some interest in doing. And that's what I want to make videos about, is really talking about, the strategy of Gwent and my experience with it. And that could change. Let's see. Is there really anything else I want to talk about? The Pokemon Online card game is actually quite good. I think that if you have any kind of interest in Pokemon in general, like if that was something you liked in your childhood, or if it's something you still like, it's a genuinely good card game that has a really clean interface. Like it's very well polished, and it's strategic and it's fun. It's also very free, like you can get into it pretty easily. So if you have any interest in Pokemon, it's worth your time. My only gripe with the game is that there isn't as competitive of an element, not because the game isn't competitive. Like, I think it's very skill testing, and it's a game that you can take very seriously. But the trouble is that they don't have like a real ranked system in it. They have a tournament mode, which you can grind and get lots of packs and stuff, and continue to play tournaments if you're good at it. But you can't really compare yourself to other players, which I think is very fundamental in a competitive game. I think having a rank that really kind of defines how skilled you are is very important to me. And Pokemon doesn't have that. But if you're looking to just have fun playing with cool decks and an interesting strategy, it's worth checking out. The last thing I will say is that I have been working on making my own card game for a very long time now, but it will continue to be a very long time before I have anything to really talk about or show you. I mean, there's obviously a lot I could say about it, but it changes frequently. To put it one way or another, like around November, I had a playable version of the game, and it was fun, but I felt that there were some flaws in it that I wanted to work out, and because of that, I've gone back so many steps that I no longer have a playable game. So, like, I want to change some of the core game mechanics, which might take a long time. So, I mean, maybe you guys are probably interested in the game, but I honestly might not really have anything to show for like a year, or more, depending on how much time and effort I put into it. So I don't want to get everybody excited about it, but just to give you like a little taste, some of the goals I have in designing this is to create a game that is competitive, but the competition is a parallel competition. And what I mean by that is in most games like Gwent, Infinity Wars, Hearthstone, Magic, or most card games I should say, players compete over resources, trying to generate more resources for themselves and deprive their opponents of resources. The game I'm working on, you don't interact with your opponent's resources. So you might say, well, isn't that just you're playing solitaire at that point if you're not interacting with your opponent in any direct way? And the answer to that is the way that I have made it so that you do interact is that you're actually forced to cooperate with your opponent, because the another goal of the game is to have this be a multiplayer game, more than two. Like the number I'm going with right now is 4. So rather than competing with opponents and trying to deprive them of resources, instead, I have to cooperate with other players to try to maximize my own resources. Just to give you another little taste, is that there are classes, and one of the classes that I have right now, which could continue to exist or it might disappear, and this ability that I'm about to mention might disappear. But anyways, in the previous version I was testing, the cleric class had the ability to basically destroy any monster, provided that there was another player cooperating with them. So it was a card that was extremely powerful, but only if you could finagle the political aspect of the game, getting one of the other players at the table to go along with you, which of course part of the way you do that is incentivizing them to help you. Like, I will kill the monster and we will split the loot or whatever. So anyways, that's all I have to say about that. I'll probably try to churn out a couple Gwent videos while I try to grind to Grandmaster. And I hope to see you guys on the journey with me, but I don't expect everybody to be interested in Gwent, but I'm going to try to be as clear as I can, so for those of you who haven't tried the game yet, you can hopefully catch up and not feel completely lost. So that is all for today, everybody. Until next time, peace out.